Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo Podcast. I'm Joey Calvo. Please continue to help support the victims of the California wildfires because they do need our help. Gift cards, any clothes, anything that you can help them with, please do. So today our guest is Russell Farnsworth, and he has a story to tell. I'm not even going to explain it. So I'm going to let Russ introduce himself to you folks, and we're going to go from there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Russ Farnsworth. I've had a lot of interesting life experiences, most recently being targeted by an organized crime ring and basically having my life dismantled by that crime ring, eventually having my home burned to the ground by these people and being forced off my own property. So that's the story I'm here to tell today.
Wow. Okay, so how did this all happen? You know, what led to where this all...
Well, the county where this occurred, Siskiyou County, California, is extremely corrupt. It's notoriously corrupt. And people have talked about it. You know, I grew up there as a kid, and I would hear about it as a kid growing up there. And apparently nobody's ever done anything about it. I moved away from the area at age 18 and spent most of my time in Los Angeles, working a career there in the corporate world.
Right.
And when I was ready to give that up, I wanted to go back to this property where, that had been in my family since 1957 and where my brother and sister and I had spent a lot of good times and had a lot of fun memories. So I wanted to go back there when I retired. And when I arrived with all my belongings and, 2 trucks and a trailer full of stuff, I had found that the driveway into our place had been bulldozed or, used a backhoe to dig a giant trench in the road so I couldn't get through. So that was when I realized something was going on, but there was a lot going on actually before that. So when my mother died in 1992, she left the property to my brother and my sister and I.
Right.
And I believe that, well, I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but some of the corrupt people in the county may look at properties like that and say, and think, oh, I can buy a property right next door. I can block them out of their property. And then, I'll get to have their property, or I'll increase my own property value by eliminating an easement to drive through their property. So it's hard to understand what their real motivation was. But there's one neighbor, Dan Deppen, and he bought a neighboring property right after my mother passed away. And then he started having problems with us using the road to get in and out. And so unbeknownst to us, he went to the courthouse where he has lots of friends who work there, and he submitted a fraudulent document and recorded it at the county recorder's office.
Right. And
that fraudulent document basically eliminated our easement right to drive through his property to get to our property. And because it was all done without anybody giving us any knowledge, any notice or due process, it was all kind of discovered after the fact. And now I'm trying to deal with cleaning it all up.
Right. Okay. So mainly it was all based, excuse me. So it was all based on a little piece of property.
Yeah, 10 small acres with these 2 neighbors, Dan Deppen and Don Phelps. They both own hundreds of acres in the area, and they own multiple properties.
Right.
So it's really just kind of weird that they have such a hang up over our little 10 acres.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're into, if these were organized crime members and you're the dividing factor, they're going to fight to, literally, quote unquote, you out and absorb your 10 acres. And then they have to fight amongst themselves in reference to who gets it. You know,
Okay.
so um, so you said that these two this um, neighbor or so-called neighbor uh, put in a fraudulent a document to block you from even getting into your house, literally.
Yes.
Um, and you're still in the process of cleaning that up. You said, correct?
Yes, yes, legally, through the legal efforts trying to clean it up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the property is also a physical mess. The home that stood there, the cabin was burned to the ground. So, I mean, there's just garbage everywhere. I had boxes and all kinds of things stored there, which bears have come through and just
Mm-hmm.
rummaged through. So it's physically a mess and just a blight. But
Okay.
what can we do about it? We can't even get in to try to clean it or do anything on the property without,
Right.
getting shot or something.
Right.
Um, these people are absolutely nuts, and they have made multiple death threats against
Okay.
me and my family members.
Okay. And so I don't know where to go with this. Um, I mean,
Well, I
I
can give
mean,
you another piece that's interesting, which is
yeah.
that the sheriff's department and the local judges and also perhaps the DAs all seem to be part of this organized crime ring or
Okay.
sympathetic to it.
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
keep running into
I
those
noticed
guys.
that. Yeah. You said you. It says here that you spent 100,000 so far, but of course, you're blindsided, because
Yeah.
everybody is against you on it, and have you reached out to maybe? Well, after last night, I don't know if he would really help, but like Governor Newsom.
I did send either a letter or an electronic message to his office and kind of tried to apprise him of the situation. I didn't get a response back.
Okay.
And then I did send a letter also out to, I think it went to President Biden. This was, in 2024 or
Yeah.
2023 that I sent it out.
Yeah.
And also my representatives in California. A couple of them did reply back, but basically said they weren't going to do anything.
Right.
So, I mean, it's crazy that you get into these situations and the
Mm-hmm.
government just doesn't want to get involved or bother with it.
Right.
So the California DOJ, I would think, has jurisdiction over this, and
Mm-hmm.
considering this, involves corruption of county officials, they
Right.
should be involved with it.
Yeah.
But they've had no interest and they've done nothing. And while the time I was living on the property, I was there about 2 years, basically
Mm-hmm.
being hunted by these hillbillies.
Right.
And the Department of Justice would not do anything to try to manage what was clearly a volatile and dangerous situation.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Have
So,
you even? So you didn't even go to the FBI, even?
oh yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So the
I've
FBI,
reached out to anybody I can think of.
yeah, and they couldn't help you either. I mean, that's weird because I mean, I had a little incident. Well, not in reference to organized crime, but like being scammed. Um,
Mm.
and I reached out to the FBI, and they took the information down, but that was the last I heard. So and I understand they're very busy, but I mean, everything has stopped since then in reference to that. So I'm like, okay, it's done, taken care of, move on. So okay, so
This fraudulent deed that was reported
yeah,
was effectuated through the U.S. mail. So that's a commission of mail fraud.
right,
And I reported that to the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, but they haven't done anything either. And I think with a lot of those big agencies,
mm-hmm.
if there's not like 1,000 victims, they just don't bother.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of sad because everybody in that county is a victim, really.
Right.
And it's a small county, but there are thousands of people, tens of thousands of people who live there.
Right.
and any one of them, and a lot of them get messed with in some way or another. Maybe they didn't get their home burned down and they didn't get run off their own property, but maybe they lost a lawsuit that they should have won just because the judge was partial to one party. So it's affecting more than just me, and the government should be more interested in trying to stop it. And this is what's really frustrating me, is the fact that I have proof of everything that's occurred. I've got documented evidence. So, all any government agency would have to do would be to come in and just start slapping cuffs on people, because it's all been proven, but they just don't want to get involved.
Yeah. Either they don't want to get involved, or they are in the take, per se.
I think that sometimes what happens is you have some government agencies or officials that have oversight over others. They've got their own corrupt scams going on, and they don't want anybody looking into those and shutting them down. So they just let everybody else get away with their little corrupt scams as well. And then the whole system is just, a mess.
Yeah.
A mess that can't support anybody.
Right. Well, I mean, the only other suggestion I could give in reference to it, I mean, you reached out to Biden in 23 and 24. Look at Trump.
Yeah.
Reach out to President Trump. I mean, he's done everything else, I mean, he just got to stay with his stay with the National Guard in Los Angeles and all that. So, I mean,
he definitely knows how to work the system.
Yeah. And I mean, in a way, your governor's, I'm a registered Democrat myself. Okay. And I have been noticing even that everything has fallen apart, even on the Democratic side, because anything that's been attempted gets nowhere. So, I mean, the only thing I could suggest is reaching out to like President Trump or like the higher ups in the FBI, continue to reach out in reference to it.
Yeah, I'm definitely planning to submit another complaint to the FBI. I don't know if I can shout loud enough to ever get Trump's attention, but yeah, I mean, I would accept help from anybody. That's for certain. I mean, what's happened is absolutely crazy, something no American should have to deal with. And what's kind of revealing about all of this is the fact that if you don't have $250,000 laying around that you can use to sue somebody in civil court, you effectively have no rights.
Right.
And I think a lot of people walk around believing that they have rights in this country, and they really don't, because anybody can violate your rights and there will be no recourse other than you coughing up six figures or more and trying to get justice for yourself.
Right.
So it's a really sad state of affairs.
Yeah. And I mean, your current, like you said, you put in 100,000 already and got you nowhere. And, like you said, the cards are kind of stacked against you.
Now, there's an interesting side story to this, because the attorney that I had hired to help me seems to have gotten bought off by the opposite side. And he spent all my money while destroying my case.
Wow.
And he would, for about 3 months, he was filing documents on my case that he was not telling me about. And then also the opposition was filing documents that he wasn't telling me about. I have a lot of spine damage and damage pretty much in all my joints. So I spent a lot of time at the gym, exercising and doing physical therapy, trying to combat this condition. And that's what I was doing at the time. I was going to the gym every day, spending most of the day at the gym, and then coming home exhausted. So this I mean, this was a high-priced attorney. His billing rate was $460 an hour. You would assume that he would be on top of things and let me know what's going on, but clearly he was trying to undermine my case.
Right.
And he was filing these documents that I mean, I would never have allowed him to file on the case if I had known about them, because the defendant in the case, Don Phelps, had told all kinds of lies in his document. His document was so full of lies that he didn't sign it, and his attorney would not put his name on it.
Right.
So in my attorney's response to that, he did not correct any of the lies in it, which, you know, had I known about the document, I would not allow him to file the document on the case until he had corrected the record. So that's another thing that's just really screwball about this whole situation. People can be so greedy and corrupt that they, even though knowing that you're a victim of all this crime, just throw you right under the bus to make another buck for themselves.
Have you looked into, in reference to your attorneys, that, you know, the ones that, you know, deceded you, have you looked into reporting them?
Yes, I've reported them. It was Wade Law Firm based out of Los Gatos, California. And the attorney was Brian Miller, who was based out of Beverly Hills, I believe, at the time. He's moved on to another firm. I'm sure that my case is probably part of it, because I did file an arbitration against the law firm, and they're fighting back hard, but I believe I will win, because it's just so egregious what they did. And again, I've got all the documents to prove everything. I think maybe they just figured that I was already so broke, you know, having been destroyed by this other crime ring, that they could then just, hey, you know, they saw me bleeding out at the scene of the crime. Why not just reach down and take his wallet?
Yeah. I mean, that's what everything's going on today. Everything is more the wallet. You know, they're like, oh yeah, you got this. Thank you. All right. So I mean, this is tough. I mean, it's really tough, and I mean, I feel bad. Now, explain about. Oh, so all right. So you also mentioned about racism being part of it too.
Yeah, it's definitely a very racist county, and when I was forced off my own land, it was a conversation that I happened to record the audio of, because I was always getting confronted by Don Phelps as I tried to walk up the road, and he carries a gun, and he's pulled it on me several times. He's fired at me before. So I didn't have any cameras, like a body camera to wear. So, and that's because I was denied any victims' compensation benefits. I was asking for just $1,000 for more cameras so I could collect more evidence, and I was turned down. But I at least had an audio recorder, so I was wearing that every time I walked up and down the road, just in case I encountered Phelps and he pulled some of his you know, egregious actions that he likes to lie about in court and say that I was the aggressor. So I happened to be wearing an audio recorder during this conversation, and it was made very clear to me that my race was an issue and that I had to leave. And so I was not even allowed to go back to my property. I think this happened about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I was not allowed to go back to my property to get a coat, my reading glasses, my meds, or a toothbrush. I was just sent out into the night, you know. Go figure out where you're going to live now, because we're not accepting you here.
Yeah.
Really a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what else to say in reference to this. I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, I you know, the only suggestions I could I gave, you know, I could give in reference to maybe that could help you is you know, like you know, reaching out to President Trump and you know, and you know, higher up in in the FBI, because you said your representatives couldn't help you. Did you reach out to like the senators?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And they were the same way. They said, no, we couldn't help.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think I, in the past, reached out to one of my representatives in the state legislature, and that really got nowhere either. But an interesting piece of this is before I had arrived with all my stuff, intending to move in, the neighbors who blocked the road had already consulted with the sheriffs, and the sheriff was their buddy. So he told his deputies that I was to be arrested if I went to my own property. So that was the situation I was walking into when I got there. And when I called the sheriffs to enforce our easement, instead they told me I would be arrested if I didn't leave.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, it's really an ugly thing. And that sheriff now has resigned his position.
Okay.
He's now he's a reserve police officer in Los Angeles.
Oh boy.
So yeah. I mean, they just shift him around. Oh, you committed a bunch of rights violations here. Let's go put you over here where you can commit more.
Yeah. I mean, it's just.
And my guess is that Gavin Newsom probably knows who I am and knows my case, just because there wasn't just one fire. It wasn't just the fire that burned my home to the ground.
Right.
There was a second fire set 6 months later. It targeted the RV trailer I was living in and my quad. And that fire ended up burning more than 20 acres of land and was a huge deal. And the effort to put out that fire was, I think, over $3 million from what I understand from the CAL FIRE investigator. So the state has had to spend a lot of money dealing with this problem. They've had to cough up a lot of money, and taxpayers have had to foot the bill, but they don't, nobody wants to actually just come in and solve it.
Well, like I said, I mean, it's just so much. I mean,
Yeah, if anybody out there is interested in hearing more or looking deeper into this or just curious about it in any way, I'd love to connect with anybody. I'm just trying to get my story out there,
right,
and see what kind of support I can garner from that.
Yeah.
So I have a website. It's russandwatson.com. Watson was my big, lovable guard dog who really kept me safe up there.
Right.
I don't think I would have survived living on that property without this dog. He's the most vigilant guard dog I've ever known. And so that's the website, russandwatson.com. And my email address is on there if anybody wants to reach out to me, ask questions. I put all the evidence of my claims and all the documents and pictures and proof, everything is on x.com/arson victims.
Okay. Give me a minute. So yes, there's the website, folks. So if anybody wants to step up and maybe help Russell, you can get, reach out to him through that website. And like I said, I apologize. I couldn't do much. I mean, of course, like all I could do is bring out the story, but I mean, it's really like up against the wall to me, because, like I said, in reference to, we're all, we all have our targets. I mean, I have someone I know. Matter of fact, his sister and I went to school, but he is he's been on TV and everything, and I tried to get him on this podcast, and he literally said to me, he said, if I came on your podcast, you'd be a target. I was like,
also,
wow. Well, because he's, he does, it's I mean, he's kind of like an activist.
I see.
So, I mean, I applaud him for protecting me on that, but at the same time, I'm like, I still want you to come on. I'm because I'm at the point where I don't care. I mean, if I turned around right now and bashed the government, I mean, of course, they find out who I am and they'll be after me real quick too. But I have, of course, I've had, there's like I said, I can only give you suggestions of what I think that could help. Like I said, being that, us Democrats couldn't do much and we apologize. Or, they don't want another Nancy Pelosi incident, which came off of that. So I could understand.
Which incident? Which incident are you referring to?
Where her husband was beaten.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why, some of the I can probably see that view of why, your representatives and stuff were afraid to help you because they don't want to go through the Nancy Pelosi thing after January 6th.
Right.
Where her husband literally was beaten to a pulp. Literally beaten to a pulp. Oh. And I mean, he thank God he's alive, but he was literally, I mean, they were trying to get Nancy, but they got him instead. So,
I think that the people up there are complete cowards. And I don't think, I think the only reason they're picking on me is because I was all alone. I really didn't have any support. I didn't know very many people in the community. And most of them that I did know were kind of unwilling to get involved because they were older. One person was very old and ended up dying a few months after I moved there. So if things could have been done differently, like when I moved onto the property, I had an idea of going there with a group, like a large group of people, so that these neighbors would understand that I have support in the community and they can't just bully me around.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to bring that together. And so they knew I was just all alone up there and they just had to lean on me enough until I broke and had to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, I thank you for bringing your story out here. I mean, I'm sorry, I may not be able to, I don't know how much help I could give off of it. I mean, sharing the story, I mean, yes, that's a plus. And, but in reference to, if anybody does reach out to you, I mean, that's going to be a blessing.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I think podcasts are incredibly important because I would never get on national news with my story, or most likely wouldn't. I would have a hard time with that. But I've been on several podcasts and I've been able to talk about it. So it's really important. And I think it's very important for people to understand that if something happens to them, they really can't count on the government to do anything. And had I known that the Department of Justice was just going to look away as all this was going on, I definitely would have done things differently. I probably would have shot people, maybe. I at least had my gun and threatened them with it, because I was threatened with physical violence if I went to my own land.
But here's the thing, they may turn around and say, no, we can't help you. But if you turn around and did something, you're done.
They'll be on top of you for sure. But what does it matter? I mean, right now I'm in way worse shape than I would have been if I had just been more aggressive.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd be on trial for having shot somebody.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the only, those were the only suggestions I could give. If anybody else reaches out to them, that could help him, please do.
Yes, right now I'm trying to basically manage 3 lawsuits. I've got the original civil lawsuit against the neighbors that's in Siskiyou County Court. And then I've got an arbitration against the attorney that's at the state bar court.
Yeah.
And I've got an appeal to the original case as well in the appeals court. So it's a lot for me to manage. Like I said, I'm disabled. I have to spend a lot of time doing physical therapy, and trying to juggle these cases and keep them alive is just impossible.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I really need is someone to help out with the legal effort in one way or another, either with funds or as a pro bono effort.
Yeah. All right. Well, Russell, I do thank you for coming on the podcast. I do hope that people do reach out to you. And, you know, I mean, if anybody can help him in any way, I mean, please reach out to him and you know, see what you could do, you know?
Yeah, even just following my Twitter account, it's x.com/arson victims. If they just repost everything that's on that account, that will double my reach, because I don't really have anybody doing that right now.
Okay.
So very little things that don't cost anybody any money and hardly take any time would be extremely beneficial for me.
Okay. All right. Well, Russ, like I said, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Hopefully, like I said, somebody will reach out and help. And I thank everybody that watched this podcast and listened to this podcast. Thank you so much. And may God bless you all.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.